Are your young children currently learning how to read? And is it a bit puzzling to you to know how to teach them to read? If that is you, you will love today's episode as we talk with a reading specialist on the very beginnings, how to get the ball rolling, and how to practice in your daily life in a way that it is supportive and not overloading. Does your child have a speech-language delay and you really want them to talk? Do difficult behaviors derail home life and you know the frustration is a communication struggle? Does your child see a speech therapist and you wonder, what do they do and how can I help? If these or similar questions are in your mind, this podcast is for you. Hello, my name is Dinalynn Rosenbusch. I am a speech-language pathologist that has worked with children from birth to 21 for 3 decades. And in my classrooms, I see you wanting to connect with the heart of your child, but their speech and language skills create a barrier. So if you have a kiddo that has difficult behaviors, needs to expand their language or learn to say speech sounds, and maybe even receives speech therapy, stay tuned. Because in this podcast, you will learn how to use your daily life as a tool to communication practice and how to do that practice. You will become confident knowing you are making the difference you want to make. And you will hear success stories of parents who have navigated these struggles already. We'll do this all while focusing on building deep, meaningful connection and confidence in your kiddo. So grab a cup of coffee along with a notebook and pen. It's time to speak in the way your child's brain understands. And that is the language of play. Welcome back to the language of play. Before we jump in today, I want to share a quick listener review. And this one comes from Grandma Debrick, who wrote, "Great focus. Dinalynn is very focused on improving outcomes for kids through supporting parents in their daily struggles." Thank you so much for that encouragement. Hearing from you means a lot, and it helps other families discover this podcast. I also want to say hello to the listeners from around the world that have recently tuned in because we are on the top podcast charts in Russia, Saudi Arabia, Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, the United Kingdom, the United States, South Korea, New Zealand, Slovenia, Cyprus, Kuwait, Greece, Luxembourg, Armenia, Kazakhstan, Cambodia, Ukraine, Japan, and Australia, all today on the top podcast charts in parenting. So thank you for listening. I'm so glad you're here. Please keep sharing the podcast with people you know that are living with or teaching children. I also have a bundle to announce, an upcoming resource for families. The Lucky Find bundle was created specifically for parents of children with unique needs, kids with big feelings and sensory differences, learning challenges, executive functioning struggles, emotional regulation needs, or kids who are just wired differently. So if that's you, this free bundle will be open March 11 through 17. And so if you want the link when it opens, make sure you're signed up for my newsletter so you don't miss it. You can sign up on the newsletter link in my show notes. And while we're talking about listening and communication, I want to share a free resource with you. What if your child isn't ignoring you, but truly can't process what you're saying? For many kids, speech sound delays or language struggles make listening and following directions harder than it looks. And that's why I created 5 ways to get your kids to listen better. A free guide with simple, effective tips that you can use right away. And you can grab this in the link also in the show notes. All right now, we are in the middle of a series called When Communication is Hard. In the last couple of episodes, we talked about speech sound challenges, we looked at motor disorders, and then we talked about articulation and speech sound differences. Today's episode fits a little bit differently into this series, and I placed it here on purpose. My guest, Melanie Jeffrey, talks about sounds, phonics, and early reading. For some children, learning to read actually supports their ability to learn speech sounds. This is especially true for kids who learn well visually or who benefit from more than just hearing a word. When we add visual support like letters, written words, playful activities that highlight the beginning sound and ending sound in words, all of this can strengthen speech development. Instead of relying only on what they hear, children also have something that they can see and interact with, which can support that speech sound development. So while this episode isn't technically one of the core teaching episodes in the series, it strongly supports this stage of development. So if you have a little one who's struggling with speech sound acquisition, today's conversation will give you some practical ways to play with sounds, even if you use letters as simple visuals to support your child as they learn. After this episode, we'll move into the next part of the series, and that is on language development. So we had divided speech from language, and next week we're going to begin talking about expressive and receptive language. Expressive language is how language comes out of us, like when we speak or write or maybe sign. And receptive language is how we take language into us. Maybe it's through listening or seeing, and it's processing what other people communicate. We often understand a child's receptive language by listening to what they say, but that can sometimes be misleading because what they say isn't always a representation of what they've got going on inside. Yet that seems to be the way we can tell what's going on inside. We will unpack more about that in the next episode. So in the show notes for today, you'll also find links to the earlier part of this series. That would be episode 253, 54, and 55. 253 is an overview. 254 is motor speech disorders, and 255 is articulation and phonological differences. You'll also find additional episodes related to reading. And one quick personal update before we start the interview. In the last episode, I mentioned that my website would be open for viewing today, and I was confident it would be ready. But life had some other plans, so the launch is not quite ready yet, but I will keep you posted when it is ready. And I thank you for your patience because I'm excited to share it with you. All right, let's jump into today's conversation with Melanie. Melanie is a phonics fanatic and host of the PHONICS Rules for Kids podcast. With years of classroom experience, she's taught hundreds of children to read using phonics as the foundation. Now she helps moms confidently model simple, repeatable skills at home so their kids can grow into confident readers. As a mom of 3, Melanie understands the challenges that bring both expertise and encouragement to families. Melanie, thank you for being on the Language of Play podcast. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here and share with us your expertise in phonics. I love, love, love that you are empowering parents. And that's what I like to do too. That is certainly my foundation too. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Dinalynn. It is my pleasure to join you on your podcast, The Language of Play, today.
Yes, thank you so much. And I should say I loved being on your podcast too. So I'm going to link your podcast in my show notes, both as a podcast in general, but also the episode where you had me on your show. That was like super fun and how I met you. And I just loved Melanie, folks. So I thought she has to come back and be on the Language of Play. So that's why she's here. And she talks about phonics. She talks about lots of things related to reading. And we know that the beginning of reading has a lot to do with listening and developing our sound system. And then when we jump into reading, that is that phonics level. Melanie, would you tell us some of the simple phonics skills that homeschool moms find helpful when they're teaching their children to read?
Yes, certainly, Dinalynn. So some of the simple phonics skills that moms will find helpful when teaching their littles to read at home. The first is phonemic awareness. Now that's a pro-phonics term that simply means an awareness of sounds. Is your child aware of the sounds around them? Is your child aware of the sounds in the language that you speak? Is your child aware of the sounds in individual words? For example, can your child hear the sounds k, a, and t in the word cat? Can they break apart the word cat into those three sounds? We call that segmenting. And I know that you're working with early learners, Dinalynn, on your podcast. And so we're going to start with very basic consonant, vowel, consonant words, where we begin with a consonant like the letter C, a short vowel in the middle, a, and a final consonant, t, the final consonant T in the word cat. Can your child orally segment? So this is just a listening and speaking drill. No magnetic letters needed yet. No pencil to paper, no fine motor skills, no whiteboard or marker. We're just going to segment the sounds in simple words. In the word tip, so mom, you would say the word tip. Can your child chop apart those little sounds? And I like to say to the kids, get your little choppers ready. They put their hands together and they're going to chop apart the sounds in tip. T, I, p. Because if your child can hear those smaller units of sounds in those simple CVC words, that stands for consonant, vowel, consonant, that is a precursor skill to accurate spelling. So we call that phonemic awareness or sound awareness. So that plays a really big part in early literacy skills for little learners.
I love that is where you started, because a lot of times when we talk about phonics, we jump right into the reading component of it. But of course, as you know, all of the reading skills really go back, don't they, to those early skills of listening and chopping apart sounds, hearing sounds in them. While we're on that, can you give an example of some way a mom could play with her child, like while she's driving a car, say a game of some sort where maybe she leaves a sound out or she says something wrong? Or what would you say would be a fun game for a mom to say while driving a car with a little kid to help them hear those sounds?
Yeah, sure. So the inverse skill of oral segmenting or breaking apart the word cat into k, at is your child orally blending sounds. So mom, you can be in the driver's seat driving along, and this is something you can do and still stay focused on the road. So you can say, all right, kiddo, we're going to play a game. I'm going to say some sounds, and mom, you're going to space them apart. And then your child is going to orally listen and blend those sounds to speak the word out loud, the whole word. So I'm the mom. I'm going to say three sounds following the consonant, vowel, consonant, CVC word model for beginning readers and spellers. So I'm going to say b, a, t. What's the word? B,
Bat.
a, t. Bat. Great job, kiddo. Let's try another word. M, a, map. Map? Yeah, that's it. Exactly. So you can be practicing the skill of oral segmenting and oral blending on the go. And because your kids are little, it's best done in short bursts of time, like 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there. This does not have to be long and laborious. Your child will be sitting there wiggling at the table. Are we done yet? So for little learners, keep these short bursts of phonics instruction, keep them short.
I love that. And I love that you are giving a real life example, and you heard me pretend to be the child. So,
Yes.
yes, and that's exactly what I would do too with my children when I was teaching them, and what I advise with families. That's so good. So now let's jump up a little bit older, because we know that this sound part is foundational. And so even if an older child isn't reading, we have to make sure that the foundation, which is what you just demonstrated for us, that's the foundation. So now let's take one step up from that foundation And what would be the next step for maybe a homeschooling mom, and maybe it's just a preschool, kindergarten, first grade teacher that is finding a kiddo ready for the next step?
Yes, and you'll know that your child is ready for the next step when they start to get a little bit bored. They're going to start to wiggle, so they're ready for a little bit more of a challenge. So the next step is to add a grapheme that matches the phoneme. And moms, those are fancy terms for letters and sounds. So for example, you're going to use those magnetic letters, okay? And you're going to say the sound ah. Show me the letter that spells ah. And your child will drag up the letter A on your magnetic whiteboard or a cookie sheet where you have your magnetic letters. So your child is going to begin to associate sounds with the correct alphabet letter or symbol. And the fancy phonics term for a letter or a symbol is a grapheme. So you want those phoneme grapheme connections to start building for your child to become familiar and build familiarity with sound symbol relationships, because those are the skills and that's the knowledge they're going to use to decode words on a page and actually read the word out loud.
I love that. I remember one time when my child was young, I was carrying her and going out of the grocery store, and she was facing the grocery store, like, and I was walking away from it, and she starts saying, "Oh, oh, oh," and I was like, "What's wrong?" And I look where she's pointing over my shoulder, and it's the O's on the word food. And so she was looking
Oh,
at the great
yes.
big sign for the grocery store, and it said Cub Foods. And so she was finding the O's in the word food and pointing to them saying, "Oh, oh," getting very excited.
Oh,
So that would
and
be
that
this grapheme and phoneme relationship right there, right?
connection is a great real life example. Yes. And when your child is showing an interest in those real life examples, when you're at the grocery store and like, Mom, what does that say? Are they pointing out the letter O? Then you know that your child is expressing an interest in letters and sounds. Take that and go with it. Your child is ready to begin the foundations of reading. So, yeah, great example.
I love that. Now, sometimes parents will think, well, I don't know. I'm not trained as a teacher. I don't know where to begin. How would I do this? You're giving us a couple of beginnings, but what about the parent that thinks I'm not able to do this? I'm not skilled in this. How do you build confidence in parents? And yeah, tell us about that.
Let me encourage you, parents, that you are your child's first and best teacher. And I want you to know that even teachers in kindergarten to grade 2 classrooms receive formal phonics instruction by a literacy specialist or coach. Teachers in elementary classrooms don't just automatically know the phonics skills to model and to practice with, to review and reinforce through games and activities with their students. They were taught. They had somebody show them, this is how we model this phonics skill. This is how we teach kids to read using a phonics-based approach. So I believe in you, moms and dads. You can teach your child to read, but you do need the right tools in your reading teacher toolkit at home. And those are the simple phonics skills of phonemic awareness. Your child needs to know how to blend sounds to read words, and you can learn this skill so that you can correctly model that for them. Your child needs to know how to correctly segment sounds to accurately spell words. And these are simple phonics skills. These can be learned by anyone. Moms and dads, I believe in you. You are capable of learning and modeling simple phonics skills to teach your child to read at home.
I love it. Yes, and that's true. Anything, even the speech pathology skills that I have, I impart to parents as well too. We want to empower everybody that works with children or cares for children to have the skills that they need for whatever that child does need. So this is fantastic, Melanie. Thank you for just letting them know. That's what you do. You just get trained and you'll have it. And you don't need to know all of it at once, right?
No. So I would begin with the simple letter sound relationships, and it's helpful to use the language. A spells a, B spells b, C spells k. And as a parent, make sure that you are teaching your child correct letter sounds, because as parents, well, sure, we know that, M spells m. Well, does it? Is it M spells or is it M spells m? Because if we didn't learn the sounds correctly, then it's important that we retrain our brain so that our child learns them correctly. As a former classroom teacher, I have an interesting example to share of a child incorrectly learning letter sounds. So we'll use the example of a simple consonant vowel consonant word. And this child is reading the word bit, B-I-T. And because this child learned the letter sound B spells B instead of B spells B, right? The was added to the end. The child was decoding and looking at the B, B, it, B, it. And that's how they were saying the word. So how we teach our children letter sounds, the correct letter sounds, really it does matter. So is it C spells K or is it C spells K? So make sure it's really crisp and clean. C spells K, D spells D, P spells P, etc.
That leads me to wonder, do we need to teach our children the full alphabet before they are going to learn to read?
And that is a great question, Dinalynn. So often we think that our children, well, if they're going to learn to read, they have to know all of the alphabet letters and sounds. So there are 26 letters in the alphabet, and all
And
of
we
the
have
sounds that go
44
along.
sounds in our English
And
language.
we do have 44 sounds in the English language. I'm telling you, if we're asking our 5-year-old to remember all of that and to recall from working memory all of those letters and sounds, so sound symbol relationships, that's asking a lot of your child. It's much more effective for parents to work with a small group of letters and sounds. You can start with 4. You can start with the letters M, A, S, and T. And I'm going to also share here that tracing pages are good. And yes, your child does need to trace letters to learn how to form them properly, but tracing pages are not enough to teach your child to actually read. The process of reading is called decoding. Your child looks at a letter symbol and they quickly recall the sound that symbol makes and the next letter and the sound it makes, and they blend them in order from left to right to read the whole word. That is the process of reading. It is called decoding. So if you are working with 4 letters, M, A, S, and T, that is plenty for your beginning reader. You can make the word tam. You can make the word mat. You can make the word sat. You can make the word task. And don't worry about, that task would have a double S right at the end of the word after a short vowel. Don't worry about that. Your child hasn't learned that phonics rule. Just keep it very simple. So just 4 letter sounds, you can have your child read and practice spelling many words just with 4 letter sounds, and you're beginning the process of having them blend sounds to read words and segment sounds to spell words. They are reading with only 4 letters and 4 sounds. It really is amazing to see it at work.
I love that. I also love that you picked high frequency sounds. Like those letters appear in many words, and those letters appear often in our spoken language, those sounds. So you're having multiple opportunities, not just multiple words there, but you can then hear them in different words when you're going to places in the car and you say sign. Now the only letter sound that is in that word is the s, but you've talked about it, they've seen it, they've done it. So you can then call attention to it and say what begins the word sign, and they will have something that they can answer. And your older child then in the car, you can probably say what ends the word sign. And then everybody can
Yes.
play the same game without making it be real different and obvious. I love that.
Exactly. And that is, yeah. And what you said exactly, Dinalynn, that is the skill of identifying the first sound in a word. And we call that phoneme segmentation. Your child is able to identify the first sound in a word. Such an important skill. And there are lots of sorting games. You could get objects that start with the letter S and throw in a few objects that don't start with the letter S and ask your child to sort. Oh, which toys or which objects begin with S, and play a little sorting game. That's a great activity for beginning readers as well.
I love it. That sounds fantastic. All right. Now, let's imagine that I have a child now a little bit older. We've talked a lot about the beginning part, but let's imagine I have a child that's maybe 6 or 7 years old. So they've been exposed to a lot of this. They've done a lot of these activities. What would be some of the next step?
Okay, so the next step, so they are familiar with the alphabetic principle, the one-to-one correspondence of letter symbols to letter sounds. A spells a, D spells de. So the next step would be to introduce digraphs. A digraph is a sound that's represented by two letters, di meaning two, graph meaning symbols or letters. So a digraph is one sound represented by two letters, such as CH spells sh, SH spells sh. TH voiced spells v, and TH unvoiced spells v. So you can add those sounds, another of the 44 sounds, not a sound in the simple alphabetic principle, but you can begin to add more complex sounds into words. We also have trigraphs. TCH spells ch at the end of the word, like match, or in the name Mitch. We also have R-controlled vowels that you would need to have your child introduced to, right? AR spells R. ER spells The tricky part here is that there are multiple spellings. So this is a more advanced phonics skill. There are multiple spellings for the sound or phoneme The most common one is ER spells but what about IR spells like in t-shirt? UR also spells like in the word turtle. So for your older reader, you're going to introduce more advanced phonics skills, and they are more advanced because there are multiple spellings for the same phoneme or the same sound, and that's what makes them trickier for older readers. And definitely, it's not one and done. You're going to introduce it, correctly model it. You're going to practice it with your child. Word chains are an excellent way for kids to get a lot of practice with words. And in a word chain, all of the words are linked, but there is one sound in the word that has changed. So let me give you an example of a word chain. Let's use a word chain beginning with the digraph CH. So we're going to start with the word chip. Change a word in or change a sound in chip, spell ship. And so your child is manipulating and really having to think about the phoneme that has changed and how do I represent that phoneme with graphemes? How do I spell that sound? So chip and ship, and then change a sound in ship, spell shin. Touch your shin, right? And so on. So word chains are an excellent strategy for having your child work with more advanced phonics skills quickly, both reading and spelling.
I love it. And I will add that word chains like that, parents, if you have a reader that is struggling to read, even in seventh grade, one of the things that I do with kiddos like that is word chains. And it's amazing how it helps their listening skills, it helps their articulation, it helps their reading, it helps their ability to comprehend clearly what you tell them so they listen better as in obedience as well as listen better in comprehension. So, yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
The word chain is a very powerful activity, even as kids get quite a bit older.
It is, and word chains are engaging. Like you can
Mhm.
work quickly, like keep the pace fast, keep it quick, especially for older students and your older children.
Yeah, we
Um,
played a high school game around the campfire where people were dropping a sound and running it around the campfire. And my daughter thought she was like really clever. She found it online somewhere. And I thought to myself, oh, wow, this is actually a young game. But yet, at the speed that they were doing it as a bunch of high school kids, and they had more complex words, longer syllabled words, they had so much fun with this, trying to figure out the new word at the speed. So I guess it doesn't matter what age you are, because as I was
well,
watching them, I thought that might even be hard for me at the speed they're going.
that just proves that fun and phonics can go together. So
Yes, there you go. There you go.
yeah.
All right. Well, Melanie, this has been fantastic. If you were to leave a message for your parents, a message that had encouragement of what they can do right now, And let's give you a target, because what you work on is really, it builds on itself continuously when a person's learning to read. And so let me pick the age of 4 or 5. And let's say that you're going to speak to the parent whose child is, they want to help their child read. The child is kind of interested, not quite sure what to be interested in. Mom and dad don't really have the confidence to know that I can do this. But they want to, or they see that their child needs help. What would you say?
So I would say keep it hands-on. Get some magnetic letters, and I recommend the red and blue ones. The blue representing consonants in the alphabet, and red representing the short vowel sounds. Keep it tactile. Keep it hands-on. When you're teaching phonemic awareness, get your little child to get their choppers out, their chopping hands, and chop those words apart. Get your child to drag up the magnetic letter that represents a sound. Keep it tactile. Keep them engaged. Give them something to do. And also, give them a whiteboard marker and let them use their favorite color. Now we're going to write an H on the board, right? Pull down and around the hill. Give them something to do and keep it fast paced. And when you notice that your child is wiggling and, frustration is starting to enter the equation for both you and your child, pause, take a break, let your child have a body break, and then you can come back and continue on with your phonics lesson, but do keep it fast paced. And mindset is important for parents as well, right? Because parents, teaching your child to read is a big job, but it can be broken down into simple phonics skills that make this process just so simple, step by step, starting with very basic skills to more complex. I believe in you. And come on over and join me on the podcast each Monday. My podcast is called Phonics Rules for Kids, and lots of pro tips over there and encouragement for parents teaching their children to read at home, and bite-sized digestible episodes for simple phonics skills that parents can use in tomorrow's phonics lesson.
I love that. Love it, love it, love it. Yes, parents, go to Simple Phonics Rules, and you will find that link in the show notes. So thank you so much, Melanie. I appreciate your time and your effort and your energy and the work you're doing in the world.
Well, thank you so much, Dinalynn. It has been my pleasure to be here.
Hey, listeners, if you'd like to keep exploring this topic, head over to the show notes. I've included links to the rest of the series and the resources that can help you take the next step with your kiddos. And remember, I'm always cheering you on. Hey parents, I hope you found this episode helpful. If so, would you please take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who also lives or works with children? I would really appreciate it if you would leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. I read every review, and it lights me up to know that this show is making a difference. Then come join my Facebook community, where you'll meet other parents who are dedicated to helping their children grow too. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for joining me. Now it's time to go. Let's pop our kiddos in the strollers and go look around outdoors and see what we have to talk about.